TFNB, your bank for life, community efforts and impact. Clarity, a charity champions program helping those who help others, and the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. We're now joined by Dick Harmon, the Deseret News columnist, who wrote a story over the weekend with the Pac-12 having their Media Day Friday, and also with George Kliavoff and what he had to say. And Dick joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Dick, I love the way you set up your column. And it was kind of like, this is what he could have said, but he didn't. And did you kind of just check that off as you listened to him throughout the morning on Friday?
Yeah, I did, Dave. I thought that there were certain things that we just were not going to get the answers to by the nature of how quick this whole thing has happened. And I thought, well, what would have been different if they were able to answer some of these questions and give the media and the coaches and the athletic directors and the whole public a little bit better sign of where they're at? And he couldn't really deliver on any of them. And I think that speaks probably volumes about where that league is right now.
Dick, what were you most surprised about, that he took shots at the Big 12 or that he didn't take shots at the Big 10?
I think that he didn't take shots at the Big 10. He seemed to play that with kid gloves. He kind of avoided any kind of a confrontation, almost like he was afraid of him. I know these guys know each other. I know George K. doesn't have the deep relationships that a lot of other people like Bob Bowlesley. I mean, have been in this for years, and so he's got to be careful of the relationships that he has. But why take a shot at your mark? Why take the gloves off with him and do that? Well, what it did is it confirmed to us that there has been contact between entities in the Big 12 and in the Pac-12. They've been talking. There's been contact. He's had reports back. So he confirmed that, and I think he's ticked off about it.
Dick, elsewhere, in talking about the conference, I think everybody Pac-12-wise was waiting for, hey, everybody's come together, and no matter what happens, we're going to stick together, or just some togetherness. Did you get any sense of that? It didn't appear that you did.
I think that there was a concerted effort to do that. I know that when talks first came out, that there was going to be maybe some movement towards the Big 12, maybe some poaching going on with the Pac-12 schools, the remaining 10. I know that immediately there was some reaction from the University of Utah from someone underneath or close to the athletic department that contacted our newspaper and some other outlets to try to shoot that right down. So there has been a concerted effort for them to put up a face of stability, unity, and to go forward and to have that be the headlines that they want presented. But is it forced? And is there some talks going on behind the scenes that maybe we don't know about? We keep hearing, things out of Tucson that's the case. We've heard a little bit out of Denver. But that's the face that they want to put on. And it hold up. It's held up pretty good so far.
What does Brigham Young want to see happen?
I think BYU fans want to see Arizona State, and Colorado come in. Their first preference would probably be Washington, Oregon. I think Cal and Stanford would be down the line simply because of their fan bases, especially at Stanford. They're really struggling to get people in the seats. It's pitiful about what they do. But Stanford is a rival of BYU in terms of recruits. They just lost a couple of Mormon kids to Stanford in commitments, but I think that they would actively encourage Arizona State, Colorado to come on over. They don't want Utah in the Big 12. I'm talking about the fans, not the administration, but the fans, and the rivalry there is so deep and so painful. They would say, keep Utah out.
Well, we posted the question to our listeners, and we have quite a few that are fans of either school, and it was, if it was a presidential election, we wouldn't wake up the next morning and know what would happen. It was
the electoral college would be a mess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting thing, but the Big 12 would be better with Utah in it, but they already got the market with BYU. The big market here in Utah is the Utah Jazz and BYU, and then the University of Utah is down the line. That's what the media counts and our story counts say as far as what we do. But the University of Utah take nothing away. Their football program with Kyle Whittingham is first class at the top 10 program. They went to the Rose Bowl. They've beaten Alabama. He's got it rolling. I don't know how long he'll be there, but if you ask me if Utah would be a good mix in the Big 12, I say absolutely.
Dick, it's when George Kliavoff is talking about the Big 12 coming to poach, and I understand the reasons behind doing all that. I understand, the togetherness and all that. And I understand why he's not taking shots at Kevin Warren, but isn't there a big just bubble of uncertainty surrounding schools at the Big 12? I mean, we'd probably love to have, but doesn't have a much of a chance. Oregon, Washington, Cal, Stanford. I mean, isn't there quite a bit of a feeling that, you can't really sign a long-term rights, not just because of who might be looking at the Big 12, but who the Big 10 might want in the future? And how much of a problem does that cause in terms of trying to keep this thing stabilized?
Well, there are so many problems with that league right now. If some of the preliminary indications of what their money package is going to be, anywhere from $21 million per team to maybe 30, 35, 40 at the very most, and that's in a dream world. The fact that they might be giving disproportionate amounts to some schools, maybe Oregon and Washington, as to others. I mean, to get them to stay, and then, like you mentioned, to have how long can you sign your grant your media rights?
Right?
Would it be for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years? I don't know that Oregon or Cal or Stanford or Washington would sign anything that would be on 3 years. They'd be fools not to. And if you do that, then how stable is your program? It's not stable. Your conference is not stable.
Which is why I go back to his comments about your mark. I understand that the conference could completely shudder if, let's say 4 teams were to up and leave and go to the Big 12. But, if you're mad at the Big 12 for talking to these teams, but meanwhile, the team that already destabilized, or the conference that already destabilized you by taking your LA market, is the one that also has this hanging over your head of, if they want to, they can swoop in and grab a couple of others and really destabilize you, which makes his comments about your mark and not Warren even that much more puzzling to me.
No, absolutely. But here's the thing that's even more puzzling is that there are I think we're talking mainly about fans and media. In the Pac-12, they really, really believe they can pick up the phone and get Baylor, Oklahoma State, TCU to join them any day that they want. There's that kind of an attitude that they have where I kind of think that the disruptive sisters of the Pac-12 don't trust each other. And if there's any stability at all that Yorkman is walking into it, I think that the remaining teams outside of Texas and Oklahoma, the remaining teams and the newcomers, there's an element of trust there. You guys would have a better feel for that than I do, but I think that the people are really genuinely excited about this move and about the new conference, and they want to make it work and they want to keep it together. And now I could be reading that wrong, but there are two opposite universes in the Midlands and the Pac-12.
There's a chat comment. By the way, I had a chat comment from someone that says they listen to you up in Utah and they love your show. So, Dick, that's from somebody in the chat room. I wish I could remember the name. In fact, I did copy and paste it. The DA, who's part of the chat room. You mentioned that about Utah. Do they? And I know the bitter rivalry and all that, and there's a lot of those around the country. Like TCU and Baylor is because they're two private schools, but also because TCU was left out when the Big 12 was formed. Is that the same way Brigham Young feels about Utah because they were accepted to the Pac-12 and BYU didn't get the invite?
Yeah, absolutely. There's and then University of Utah, the community in Salt Lake City went and put Pac-12 banners up on almost every light post in town in Salt Lake City. They put billboards up on the freeway. They kind of rubbed it in their faces. But the thing that's also elementally at the center of this culturally is that there's two big differences in these universities. One is a religious institution and one is a state. And there are some elements in the state institution that really, really resent the religious aspects of BYU. And it kind of gets deep into people's personal beliefs and things like that. And it's been this way for 50, 60, maybe 70 years. You're not going to get rid of that. And so when you go to the Pac-12 and they say, well, it's a cultural fit, and they take Utah, then it's a slap in the face at a school that has a bigger stadium, a bigger following, and a lot of other elements, including a national championship in its resume. Multiple All-America, Davey O'Brien, Heisman Trophy, Outland. All this tradition of BYU, you spit in the face of that because it's not a cultural fit. So there's a big resentment among BYU fans, the Pac-12, and particularly about University of Utah going there.
Dick, BYU already has built something under Kalani Sitake where they can take on all comers right now and not walk into any game where you think that they're going to get walloped or beaten, and they're going to be in every single game. Now that they will be actually in a year able to play for conference titles and potentially the CFP, how have you seen the buzz around their football program for recruits? I mean, you mentioned the kids that are going to Stanford, but overall solidifying their base and growing it out now that you can do those things at BYU in 2023.
Yeah, it's been helpful in a couple of things. Number one, they've been able to build more depth, getting some talent in, which will help when they go to the Big 12. Number two, I think the recruiting, it's opened doors for them. They've talked to people. They've had people call them from Florida and Texas and deep recruiting country of Houston. They've had people call them on the phone that would not have called them before, or return their calls when they would not have done it before. And it's made a huge difference with they just got a transfer from Oregon, a girl, a basketball player. And she's playing for her mother that BYU just hired, but this girl is one of the top 15 basketball players in the country, and she came because of the Big 12.
Again, Dick Harmon, Deseret News columnist, and obviously some of you that do get to listen to him in the chat like what he does in the writing as well. So it seems like, obviously, there's whatever the open window or whatever the negotiating window for the Pac-12 when it comes to TV, which is ending on Thursday of this week. There's the Big Ten, whenever they decide, because they can on their own dime, what they're going to do and release their television rights. Until then, you think anything's going to happen?
I don't think so, unless in the Pac-12 a couple of people get giddy and shaky and say, and anxious and say, you know what, this didn't turn around, and let's just go and do it. Let's just jump. I don't know that will happen, but if that does, it'll be because of that, is because the numbers come in low and they said, okay, let's just take off now.
Hey, again, Dick, thanks for your time. We appreciate you. We'll try to get you on again down the road. We appreciate your time.
Thanks. Love your stuff. I listen to it all the time. You guys do the best job in the country. Thank you.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
Dick, thank you very much. I did not know you were going to say that, but thank you. Did we record that? From Dick Harmon, again, Deseret News.
Make sure.
Here's one.
Emery, make sure.